Welcome to another episode of Give and Go, SI.com's critically acclaimed web series, where we debate three of the biggest storylines in the NBA this week. In today's episode, we discuss the Thunder's chances to rally, the most disappointing two-guard in the league, and should the NBA consider realignment. Joining me now is a man who has never seen a video who wouldn't tweet, SI.com writer Ben Golliver. What's up, Ben?
Not too much, Chris. How are you?
I see you're almost getting out of the Gap section and moving up in clothing.
Well, it's freezing out here, so I had to add layers. That's what I did today.
Portland, Oregon, baby. Gotta love it. All right, topic number one. The Thunder are 5-12, but they got Russell Westbrook back over the weekend, and there are reports that Kevin Durant could be back as early as this week. Ben, can the Thunder make the playoffs?
Absolutely. They've got to be loving life right now. I mean, clearly it was a rocky first month to the season. Not having either one of those guys led to some really ugly games and really forced them to try to win on defense and hard and just hope they had some easy opponents. I mean, it was tough sledding. But when they look at the schedule right now, I mean, they've got, first of all, a lot of time left to make up the ground. And second of all, it's not that much ground. I think what we've seen in the Western Conference is a separation where you've got really a top seven teams, seven of the teams that were in the playoffs last year besides OKC, who have really separated themselves. And then you've got Phoenix kind of dangling there at number 8. I haven't been super impressed by Phoenix this year. I don't think they really took a huge step forward. And so if I'm Oklahoma City, I mean, that number 8 seed seems very attainable. And from there, you know, they just hope that maybe they can scale the ladder even higher. But certainly I see them as a postseason team.
Yeah, I'm startled, to say the least, that we're seeing Russell Westbrook back into the lineup, and we're talking about Kevin Durant coming back this week. Ben, when we were thinking about the Thunder and looking forward to the season, I was thinking they might be 5-25, that we'd be seeing Westbrook back around mid-December, Kevin Durant back around Christmas. This timetable has been so accelerated, and it's completely out of character for the Thunder, really, because they are, in my mind, the most conservative organization in the entire NBA. You know, Kevin Durant with a foot injury, I didn't think they'd even consider bringing him back until around Christmas. But if he can come back this week, this is not a deep hole for this Thunder team to climb out of. They can easily rattle off 8 wins out of 10 in most 10-game stretches and be right back in this mix. I think they're in great position as they head towards the second month of the season.
Absolutely. I mean, they've got a long track record built up here, 3 or 4 seasons worth of, playing basketball in the Western Conference against a lot of these same foes at a really high winning percentage. I mean, number 1 or number 2 seed type winning percentage. So it's there for the taking for them. I'm with you. I mean, it seems like Oklahoma City, not only are they conservative in sort of how they handle injuries, but they're the most conservative in projecting how long it's going to keep guys out. I mean, I do remember last year with some of those knee injuries, Russell Westbrook would actually, get back before they expected. It seems like they give themselves a lot of cushion, so maybe that's a factor here. But going back to your point about Durant, there's no need to rush him. I mean, this has not been an absolute disaster. They're not at 5-25. They're still definitely in the hunt here, even though, there's a number of teams that are going to have to pass once he returns. They don't need to rush him back. They still need to take a very slow, steady pace, and I'm sure a guy like Sam Presti is preaching that to them, as we speak.
Yeah, it's amazing to see the impact of Westbrook. I know it's against the Knicks and they're without Carmelo Anthony, but he is a human energizer bunny. He goes out there and he elevates the play of everyone else out there on the floor just by bringing the energy that he does. All right, topic number 2. Lance Stephenson was a high-profile free agent signing in Charlotte. In Cleveland, Dion Waiters once proclaimed he and Kyrie Irving to be the best backcourt in basketball. Neither have lived up to expectations. Ben, which one of these players has been a bigger disappointment to you?
To me, no question, Lance Stephenson. I thought that Charlotte made a shrewd investment this summer. It looked like it on paper. Add a player at a hole that you have, complement him into a mix that's already there that can use his skills off the dribble, have him run some pick and rolls. Let Big Al Jefferson feast when you need to feast, and just kind of bulk up your perimeter scoring ability. And then add some defense, too. And I thought his defense would slide in and fit very nicely with what they were doing there last season under Steve Clifford. It just hasn't happened. It's been a disaster. He looks unhappy. His teammates look unhappy. He's, often off to the side during their huddles, not participating. He's all sorts of demonstrative body languages late in games. He told me in Portland a couple of weeks ago he wants the ball more late in the fourth quarter. He was actually getting benched at times during the fourth quarter. I mean, to me, it's been a really ugly mess there, and their record shows it. I mean, they have not been good at all, and he was the one big addition, and Josh McRoberts was the one big subtraction, so it's not like they're a totally different team. They really came back to earth hard. I think a lot of the blame has to go on his shoulders because he really hasn't lived up to his offseason billing. He hasn't shot the ball well. He's not doing a lot of the little things. I think, somebody mentioned that he might not be in pristine shape. I mean, all of those things go back to him. So, if I'm the Hornets, I'm looking like, hey, did I just, make a poor investment last summer? And how do I move this contract?
He wants the ball more. Well, if you want the ball more, you should probably not drop your field goal percentage by more than 10 points already this season. Your three-point shooting percentage should not be less than 20%. He wants the ball more. I want to know what he's going to do with it when he gets the ball. Ben, I'm shocked by this, really, because I thought Lance Stephenson was an absolute steal for this team in the offseason. They get him on basically a 2-year, $18 million deal with a team option for that third year at $9 million per year. He looked like a round peg, round hole type of fit with this organization. He plays defense. He can handle the ball a little bit, which would take pressure off of Kemba Walker. But he's doing so many of the things that maddened the Pacers for years. He led the league in look-offs of Roy Hibbert for the last couple of years with Indiana. He's now leading the league in look-offs of Al Jefferson. This is part of the reason why he's not playing in the fourth quarter, because they need to get the ball to Jefferson. Jefferson's a one-man band on that team offensively. They can't have Lance shooting contested two-pointers. I do think there's some merit to him being out of shape. I do think there's some merit to him thinking he wants to be the alpha male now that he's left Indiana. But now that he's gone, I look at Lance Stephenson and I say to myself, this guy should have stayed in Indy. There was structure there for him. Larry Bird, the guy that drafted him, he feared Larry Bird and his opinion of him. Frank Vogel, the guy that developed him over the last 3 years. Some structure within the locker room with some veteran guys like Hibbert and Paul George and George Hill and, of course, David West in that organization. Leaving Indiana might have been the biggest mistake Lance Stephenson has made.
Oh, no doubt. You could see it on his face when they're down by like 40 points to Atlanta. I mean, he just looked shell-shocked, like he was totally out of place and wasn't where he should be. One guy you mentioned there was Paul George. I think we might want to talk about him a little bit more here as being a big variable, because remember, Lance never had to be number one in Indiana. In Charlotte, it seems like he kind of wants to be, or maybe it's supposed to be Al, or he's not really sure where he fits in on their pecking order, and Kemba's got to have a lot of touches. He just kind of gets lost in all of that. In Indiana, it was very clear after Paul George's emergence. He's the guy. He gets the ball. You run a lot of the offense through him, and he can be a dependable number one scorer for you. Outside of Big Al, where it's a different dynamic, you're going inside, and he's really using his touches. I wonder if that change and that transition where Lance doesn't have a player like that to rely on has sort of exposed him a little bit, because his turnovers, I mean, he's got a lot of turnover issues. You mentioned a lot of the poor field goal shooting. A lot of that's probably coming from forced shots and trying to do too much. It seems kind of, to me, maybe one of the reasons why he should have stayed in Indiana was that Paul George factor. Superstar guys make you better.
Yeah, you have to wonder what Indiana knew, too. I was surprised they wouldn't offer him the type of money he was getting from the Hornets there. But clearly the Pacers knew something about Lance Stephenson and knew exactly what ceiling they had to go to with his money. All right, topic number 3. From the self-serving department, Mavericks owner Mark Cuban has suggested that the NBA realign its divisions. It's not a new idea, Ben, but should realignment be something the league should consider?
Well, first of all, let me just admit my bias up front. I'm a West Coast, Western Conference honk. I'm sort of like that SEC football fan who thinks all the best football gets played down south. I pretty strongly feel that the Western Conference has dominated the NBA, generally speaking, over the last 15 years. And I think that in a lot of, the biggest problem to me is that, teams 9, 10, and 11 that potentially could have made the playoffs had they been in the Eastern Conference get left out, and you've got weaker teams at the bottom of the Eastern Conference getting into the playoffs. So to me, the easiest solution, the easiest bridge solution is leave the divisions how they are, leave the number of teams how they are, leave the conferences how they are, and just take the top 16 teams by record for the postseason every year, regardless of conference. And then, rejigger the matchups so that you're, basically ranking everybody 1 to 16 and then going forward that way. I think the biggest argument against that would be, the travel. I think they can handle the travel at this point, especially if, they're going to 2-3-2 for the finals. I mean, I think they can handle these things with the charter planes and everything. I would just like to see the best teams in the playoffs. That's the most important thing to me.
Yeah, I'm with you with ranking the teams 1 to 16. I think that's the most feasible solution. The travel issue shouldn't be an issue anymore. It was an issue back in the 80s when these guys were, at least some of the time, flying commercial. Now they're these massive private jets with every type of amenity where their only concern is will the steak from Smith & Wollensky's be raw by the time they get on the plane. I mean, it's not a big issue when it comes to traveling. I don't support the idea of realignment because I think that's a slippery slope that you step on. Don't you think, like in the 90s, that Patrick Ewing would have wanted realignment when he was going up against Michael Jordan every single year? Reggie Miller would have loved to have realignment back then as well. If you realign the teams and the divisions now, what do you do 10 years from now when you know that the balance of power is going to shift, when the Jabari Parkers of the world are starting to play real well and they have the Milwaukee Bucks maybe as a contending team in the Eastern Conference? I agree. Let's re-rank the teams 1 to 16 so the 8th seed in the Eastern Conference isn't something like 10 games under 500 at that point. But the idea of moving guys around divisions just because of what's happening right now, that doesn't sit all that well with me.
Yeah, when I saw Mark Cuban's comments, actually the first thing that came to my mind was, we should be giving a little bit more credit to LeBron James here, because he was smart enough to stay in the Eastern Conference twice when he had the free agency option of, basically going anywhere in the league. I mean, that right there, it probably did more to help put him in position to build his legacy than almost any other decision. Because imagine if he's in the Western Conference and he's going against the Thunder and the Spurs and now the Clippers and the Warriors and all these other teams year after year after year, the odds that he's going to be making the conference finals every single year for like 5-6 straight years, it's just so much more difficult. So, to me, there's going to be a swing at some point. It seems like it sure has been a long time coming. But I don't think there's a huge damage to the NBA's brand, really, in the current setup. I really like the idea of sticking to the 82-game schedule. I'm a traditionalist that way. I don't think you should be changing that. If you could spread it out a little bit, cut down on the back-to-backs, that'd be nice. But I don't think you want to start doing this realignment thing where now you're divvying up how many games you're playing against West teams or East teams, or, making radical changes to the foundation. I just don't think it's that broken.
Great stuff, Ben. Give that backdrop back to Adam Schefter, will you?
I will.
All right, that's it for Give and Go. Catch us this week and every week right here on SI.com.